Hola, estudiantes. Today we're going to try something new and we're going to flip the classroom. So you're going to be hearing the lecture at home today, and then in class, first thing we're going to start using this. So it's really important that you not only take notes and listen through and do the things you're supposed to do in the lecture, it's also important that you really make sure that you understand this material. So you have to find additional practice. I will post them for you in the resources under this week's My MIDI. So first let's start off with Mandatos de tú. That is the title of our lecture today. First, it's important that you understand what tú means. Tú is when you're talking to one person with whom you have an informal relationship. So you need to distinguish that between usted, which would be you sir or you ma'am, which is a formal relationship. That's not what we're talking about today. And that you distinguish it between ustedes. That is when you're talking to a group of people. For example, y'all. Also not what we're talking to today. Today we're talking about one person with whom you have an informal relationship. The second thing we're going to talk about is the word mandato. Another word in Spanish for a mandato is un imperativo. And in English, we would call them commands or the imperative. Either way, it's when you're bossing people around. When you're telling them what to do or when you're telling them what not to do. So let's look today at first forming our affirmative commands. So this is telling people what to do. We first need to start off with the raíz. Now the raíz is going to be the infinitive minus the AR or minus the ER or minus the IR. So if you look at the three words below, our infinitive for reciclar would be recicle, for cumplir would be cumple, and for promover, this one's a little crazy. For this one, it's a stem changer, so we're actually going to stem change it. So perhaps better than saying it's the infinitive minus the AR, the ER, or the IR, we can say it is the same as the él or ella form of a verb in the regular present tense. So for example, you would say he, él, promueve. So your command for root would be promueve also. And then we need to look at the endings. So the endings for an AR verb, for a positive to command is a, and for an ER or an IR verb, it is e. This is looking pretty similar to something else that you should recognize. So let's look at some of our standby verbs. So if we have the verb comer, the root would be com, and we have come. In Spanish, we're going to put the little boop, boop on either side to show that it is a command. So you say, tú, come. If we look at the verb hablar, we would have hable plus the a. Tú, habla. Ha. And then our last one, get a life, let's say, vivir. So we would have tú, vive. So vive is the vive plus this e. Come is the com plus this e. And then habla is the hable plus this a. These look exactly like something else you should already know. You should be looking at this and say, él come or ella come. Él habla or ella habla. Él vive or ella vive. So actually, you can forget about all of this raíz más a, raíz más e. And just remember that the positive to command is exactly the same as the él, ella, or the usted form of the verb. So you're going to need to be able to distinguish between whether come means he eats or whether it means you eat. And you're going to do that by context. If someone's looking at you and talking to you, it's probably a command aimed at you, and they're probably not talking about somebody else. I'd like you to look at our three vocabulary words here, reciclar, cumplir, and promover, and add those three verbs conjugated in an affirmative to your notes. I also want to make sure that you know what those words mean. So if you don't know what they mean, take a second to look up your vocabulary words so you do. So you might want to pause this in order to write those three commands. So hopefully you did look those verbs up and your commands were tú recicla, tú cumple, and tú promueve. All right, a little bit more practice with your positive to commands, also all vocabulary words from our chapter. So for gastar, solicitar, elegir, compartir, and colaborar, I would like you to form the positive to command and make sure you understand what each of these verbs mean. Compartir is actually a review word. You should know what that one means. So go ahead, pause the lecture, and make sure that you conjugate these all in a positive to command. It's never that easy, is it? This tense has a lot of, I think 8 irregular commands. So for these 8 verbs, instead of doing what we said and using the el form of the verb in order to talk to someone and tell them what to do, you're going to memorize these guys. If you note, all of these guys are verbs that are a little bit weird. A lot of them are go verbs, and then go, digo, hago, pongo. And then ir and ser are just pretty weird in general. So for decir, to tell the truth, di, hacer, to do something, haz la tarea, to put something, pon, leave, if I'm telling you to leave, sal, tener, ten, it's used most commonly with ten cuidado, be careful. Venir, ven, which means come here. Ir, ve, which means go. It's also really commonly used with the verb irse, which means to leave. It's pretty much the same as salir. So you hear it very commonly as vete, because you put the te, the reflexive te at the end there, vete. And then ser, se, con acento, to note that it's the verb and not the pronoun. Be good, for example, se bueno. Great way to remember these is row, row, row your boat. The as, pon, y sal, ten, ven, ve, y se. These are irregular to commands. Learn them right away. You know, you want to sing along this next time. The as, pon, y sal, ten, ven, ve, y se. These are irregular to commands. Learn them right away. Now that we've mastered being positive with our peers, with our informal relationships, let's look at being negative. So here we have how to form the mandato negativo. For tú, again, mandato negativo. These are pretty radically different from the positive. So, first, negative commands always begin with the word no. Don't leave that out. You're going to be tempted to do that sometimes. You're going to be so excited about all these crazy changes in here that you'll forget that the command has to start with the word no. Secondly, the root. The root of the verb is the yo form in the present tense minus the o. Okay, so let's look at some verbs like hacer has a regular yo form, right? So you would say yo hago, so your root is going to be ag. Or let's look at the verb dormir. You'd say yo duermo, so your root is going to be duerma. Okay? And then you have regular verbs like hablar. It's always going to be habla. No big deal there. So third thing we're going to do is our endings. We have to add those to the roots that we just made. So for an AR verb, it actually switches. A's usually always, up to now, have taken A's. But this one's going to take an S. So it's the opposite vowel plus an S. Your ER and your IR verbs are going to take an A, S. So if we were to go back up here, let's not forget to add our no. So we have no hagas and no dormir is an IR verb, so no duermas. Both of these were in the second category. Oop, that doesn't look like S, does it? Looks like an R. So no duermas. Let's find an AR verb. Let's go back to our friend hablar. So here we have no hables. Would be an example there. So really, really very different. We had habla was the positive command, and our negative command is no hables. Drastically different. So we have opposite vowel plus the S. Here we have some of those same verbs before, but I'd like you to copy them down again, and this time conjugate them as a negative to command. So you want to start with your upside down question mark. Don't forget the word no. then your command, and then the right side up there at the end. Also in Spanish, if you want to say you don't do this, it's actually to, comma, upside down. Then you're going to have a small no because it continues on that same sentence. It's pretty different from English. No, and then the command. Oop, accent on tu. So for these commands, gastar, solicitar, compartir, colaborar, and hacer, I would like you to pause and write out your negative 2 commands for these verbs. Also, again, you need to know what these words mean. You need to know what you're saying. Irregulars. The 2 negatives also have irregulars. Fewer of them. This time there are only 4. This time, these guys, what they have in common is the yo form doesn't end in o. Yo, no o. So dar is doy, excuse me. Estar, estoy, ir, voy, ser, soy. So all of these don't have that easy take the o off and add stuff to them. So that's why they're in this category. They pretty much look like what you'd think they would look like, except this one and this one, I guess, are a little bit odd. Dar no des, don't give me. No me des, if you had a pronoun, it would go in here. Estar no estés. I think the only crazy thing about that is you need an accent. If you didn't have the accent, the stress would be here. Estés, but you want estés. So we're going to put the accent on that syllable. Ir no vayas. Don't go. Don't leave would be no te vayas. If it were the irse, if it were reflexive, again, our pronouns come right in here. And then ser no seas. Don't be bad. No seas malo, for example. Memorize these guys. Lastly, courteous people don't actually use commands, but I guess 2 commands make the most sense to use. However, nice, easy way to avoid using a command if you're in a situation where you're real life communicating and you forgot, oh my gosh, is it colabora or colabores or colabore or whatever it is, you can simply ask someone very nicely with the verb poder, which means to be able to, in the conditional tense, which is the would be tense. So we could say, podrías, plus the infinitive, the verb and the infinitive. So for example, if I wanted to ask you, could you help me, please? Would you be able to help me? Podrías ayudar, and then I want you to help me, so I'm going to throw it on the end of the infinitive, and I have podrías ayudarme. I would like you to take a minute and translate these last 2. Would you be able to lend me a pencil? That's a vocab word, to lend. Would you be able to volunteer today? Volunteer, also a vocabulary word. Make sure you're getting those right, and avoid your commands altogether with this last line. After you do that, you are done. Make sure you review notes and make sure you understand all the information. If you want to do a little bit of extra exercise, I will post some suggestions for you again on my mini under resources for this week. Adios!